Before we dive into what might be the most terrifying and unbelievable survival story I have ever shared on this channel, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button right now. Do not wait until the end. Do not scroll past. Press subscribe and then smash that like button like your life depends on it. Because what you are about to hear is not fiction. This is not a movie trailer. This is a real story of a family who went on a dream vacation to the Amazon rainforest and vanished without a trace for 9 weeks. A mother and her 10-year-old daughter swallowed by the jungle. And what her husband found during the search will make your blood run cold. This is a story of corruption, cartels, organ trafficking, and a desperate father who refused to give up. So subscribe, like, and get comfortable, because this is going to take a while, and you will not want to miss a single second. The humid air of the Amazon jungle clung to Jordan Hart's skin like a second layer of wet wool. He had been trudging through the dense foliage for hours, his boots sinking into the soft, dark earth with every step. The walking stick in his right hand was no longer just a tool. It had become an extension of his own exhausted body, helping him maintain balance on the uneven, root-choked terrain. His backpack, which had started the day feeling manageable, now seemed to grow heavier with each passing hour, weighing down his already burdened shoulders. But the weight on his shoulders was not just physical. It was the crushing, suffocating weight of 9 weeks of not knowing. 9 weeks. That was how long it had been since his wife Julia and their 10-year-old daughter Daphne had disappeared during what was supposed to be a simple, routine river tour. 9 weeks of desperate searching. 9 weeks of sleepless nights spent staring at hotel ceilings, replaying every conversation, every decision, every goodbye. 9 weeks of hope dwindling like a candle burning low in a dark room. Jordan had flown to Colombia immediately after they failed to return from their guided canoe trip. He had reported them missing. He had hired local help. He had begged, pleaded, and shouted at anyone who would listen. And now, here he was, deep in the Amazon, with 2 Colombian police officers who had agreed to accompany him on yet another search mission. The 2 officers walked ahead of him, machetes occasionally slicing through the more stubborn vines that blocked their path. Officer Diego Mendoza was the taller of the 2, with a serious face and a calm, measured way of speaking. Officer Carlos Ruiz was shorter, stockier, and seemed to carry a constant expression of mild annoyance. They had been searching for 4 hours already, and the sun was beginning its slow descent toward the horizon. Officer Mendoza wiped sweat from his brow and turned back to Jordan. "Senor Hart," he said in accented but perfectly fluent English, "we have been searching for 4 hours now. We have found nothing new compared to the previous searches. Not a single footprint, not a piece of clothing, not a sign that anyone has been through this area in weeks." Jordan nodded but kept walking. His legs ached. His eyes burned from straining to see through the dense green walls on either side of them. But he could not stop. Stopping meant accepting something he was not ready to accept. Officer Ruiz exchanged a glance with his colleague, then spoke carefully. "Perhaps it is time to consider heading back. The conditions here are not favorable, and it will be getting dark in a few hours. Once night falls in the jungle, visibility drops to almost nothing. And the animals that come out after dark are not the kind you want to meet without a very large gun." Jordan did not slow down. "Just a bit longer," he replied, his voice hoarse from the humid air and from the tears he had shed in private moments when he thought no one was watching. "Please, just a little further." Officer Mendoza sighed but did not argue. He had seen this kind of determination before, usually from family members who refused to accept the obvious. Instead of pushing back, he said what Jordan knew they had been thinking for days, but had been too polite to verbalize directly. "Senor Hart, I understand your determination.
Truly, I do.
But you must understand something. No one can survive for 9 weeks in this jungle without proper supplies and local knowledge. There are countless dangers here. Wild animals like jaguars and venomous snakes. Quicksand that can swallow a person in seconds. Flash floods that rise without warning. Storms that can uproot trees. We found their boat 2 weeks ago, and the damage suggests it was caught in strong currents. We believe they may have encountered a storm or simply gotten lost with their guide." Officer Ruiz added, "We also have reason to believe the guide, a man named Ricky Euro, was not an official guide employed by your hotel. He was what locals call a freelancer. Sometimes he fished. Sometimes he did odd jobs for tourists. He was not registered with any tour company. That alone should have raised red flags, but the hotel did not check his credentials. And now 3 people are missing. Jordan's jaw tightened. He had heard this before, the polite suggestions that his family was dead, that he should go home, that he should start making funeral arrangements. But he refused to accept it. "My wife is resourceful," he said, his voice firm despite the tremor in his chest. "Daphne is smart. They could have found shelter. They could have found a village. They could have survived." Officer Mendoza cut in gently, his voice soft but unyielding. "Senor Hart, surviving this long would be nearly impossible, even for the most experienced jungle explorers. The Amazon does not forgive mistakes. It does not care about your hopes or your love. It simply is, and it takes what it wants." A heavy silence fell between them as they continued walking. The constant symphony of jungle sounds, birds calling, insects buzzing, the distant chatter of monkeys, filled the void left by their conversation. Jordan's mind raced with images of Julia and Daphne. Julia with her quick laugh and her steady hands. Daphne with her endless questions and her fearless curiosity. They had been so excited about this trip. Daphne had spent weeks reading about Amazon wildlife, marking pages in guidebooks, practicing Spanish phrases she had learned from online videos. And now they were gone. After another 20 minutes of trekking, Officer Ruiz stopped abruptly. He held up his hand in a signal for silence, then tilted his head as if listening to something Jordan could not hear. "The terrain ahead," Ruiz said slowly, "is known for dangerous wildlife. Jaguars have been spotted frequently in this area. Their tracks have been found within a few miles of where we are standing right now. We should turn back." Jordan looked up at the sky. Despite the dense canopy overhead, he could see patches of clear blue. "The weather is good today," he said. "We should make full use of it. Maybe just a few more miles. Or we could circle around this area. Avoid the wildlife territory completely. Please, I am begging you." The officers exchanged another look, a silent conversation that Jordan could not interpret. Then Officer Mendoza reluctantly nodded. "We will continue," he said, "but only if you agree to one condition. If we smell animal urine or waste, or if we hear suspicious noises, we leave immediately.
No arguments. No begging.
We turn around and we go back to the boat. Understood?" "Agreed," Jordan said quickly, not wanting to lose this opportunity. He would have agreed to almost anything at that point. They altered their course slightly, moving away from the area Officer Ruiz had identified as high risk for jaguars. The jungle seemed to grow even denser as they walked, the trees pressing in on all sides, the vines hanging down like curtains. As they walked, Officer Ruiz began telling a story that made Jordan's stomach turn. 3 years ago, Ruiz said, a tourist from Germany ignored warnings and ventured into this very section alone. He was an experienced hiker, or so he claimed. He carried a GPS device and plenty of water. But he did not carry a weapon, and he did not understand that in the Amazon, you are never the top of the food chain. We found only his camera and parts of his backpack. The jaguar had dragged the rest into the underbrush. We tracked the animal for 2 days before we found the remains. There was not enough left to send home to his family. Jordan felt a cold chill run down his spine despite the oppressive heat. He tried to block out the gruesome details as the officer continued, describing how they had identified the tourist through dental records. But part of him could not help but wonder. Was this the fate that had befallen his family? Were Julia and Daphne now nothing more than tragic statistics, victims of the unforgiving jungle? He refused to believe it. Not until he had proof. Not until he had found their bodies or spoken to someone who had seen them alive. As Officer Ruiz's story reached its grisly conclusion, something caught Jordan's eye. A large tree to their right, partially obscured by hanging vines, had unusual markings on its trunk. At first glance, they looked like animal scratches, the kind made by jaguars sharpening their claws or by monkeys climbing. But there was something oddly methodical about them. The lines were too straight, too deliberate, too uniform. "Wait," Jordan called out, stopping the officers mid-stride. "Look at that tree." Both officers turned, following his pointed finger. The tree was enormous, easily several hundred years old, its trunk thick enough that 3 grown men could not wrap their arms around it. Vines covered much of its surface, but the markings were visible on one exposed section. "Those do not look like claw marks," Jordan said, approaching the tree slowly. His heart was pounding now, a wild, hopeful rhythm in his chest. They looked like someone was trying to carve something, but was searching for the right spot. Look at how the lines overlap in places. It is almost as if the person made a few attempts before finding the right angle. He circled the tree, pushing aside hanging vines with trembling hands. And there it was. On the opposite side of the trunk, clearly visible and meticulously carved, was a set of numbers followed by a single letter, coordinates, and the letter J. "Look," Jordan called excitedly, waving the officers over. "Someone carved coordinates here. Someone left a message. Look at this." The officers approached, examining the markings with trained eyes. Officer Mendoza pulled out his phone and typed in the coordinates, his fingers moving quickly despite the humidity fogging the screen. As he looked at the result, Jordan noticed a subtle shift in his demeanor. The officer's expression hardened almost imperceptibly, and he quickly pocketed his phone. "This is nothing," Officer Mendoza said dismissively. "Actually, I think these markings have been here for a long time. We have seen them before during previous searches. Right, Officer Ruiz?" Officer Ruiz cleared his throat and nodded a little too quickly. "Yes, I think so. I remember them. They have been here for years." Jordan frowned. He was not stupid. He had spent 9 weeks learning to read people, to notice when they were lying, to see the small tells that gave away deception. "Are you sure?" he asked. "They look fresh to me." He ran his finger over the carved numbers and the letter. The wood beneath felt smooth, and the color of the exposed wood was lighter than the surrounding bark. That was a clear sign of recent carving. If these markings had been here for years, the exposed wood would have darkened and weathered. But it had not. "And what about the J?" he pressed. "My wife's name is Julia. My daughter's name is Daphne, but Julia, J. That cannot be a coincidence." Officer Ruiz shrugged, but his eyes did not meet Jordan's. "J could stand for anything," he said.
Julio, Jose, Juan.
"It is a common initial. Half the men in this region have names that start with J. We are certain these have been here for some time." Officer Mendoza added firmly, "We are professionals, Senor Hart. We know what we are doing. These markings are not significant. They have been documented before. Now we should continue moving or turn back. Your choice." Jordan was not convinced, but he nodded slowly, deciding not to push the issue. He did not want to antagonize the men who were his only hope of finding his family. But he also did not trust them anymore. Something was wrong. They were lying about the coordinates. He could feel it in his bones. He discreetly took out his phone and snapped a photo of the coordinates while the officers were looking elsewhere, pretending to adjust his backpack. Suddenly, Officer Ruiz stiffened. His head came up, nostrils flaring as he sniffed the air. "Do you smell that?" he asked, his voice low and tense. Officer Mendoza nodded, his hand moving immediately to the holstered weapon at his hip. "Jaguar," he said. "Close. We need to go back to the station now. No more arguments. No more searching today. We leave." Jordan did not notice any smell. The jungle air smelled the same as it had all day: damp earth, rotting vegetation, the faint sweetness of some unseen flower. But when he glanced down at the ground, he noticed something the officers had missed. A broken piece of wood, sharpened to a point, lying in the leaf litter near the base of the tree. It looked exactly like the kind of makeshift tool someone would use to carve into a tree. Someone without a knife, someone who had to improvise. As the officers turned to leave, Jordan quickly bent down, picked up the wood splitter, and slipped it into his backpack without saying a word. He did not know what it meant yet, but his instinct told him it was important. "What about the coordinates?" Jordan asked, jogging to catch up to the officers who were already walking briskly in the direction they had come. "Should not we check them out? Even if they are old, my wife and daughter might have seen them and gone there. Could be a clue." "We will discuss this at the station," Officer Mendoza replied curtly. "For now, we need to focus on getting back to the boat safely. That is your only priority. Your safety. Do you understand?" Jordan understood. He understood that the officers were afraid of something, and it was not just a jaguar. They were afraid of him finding something they did not want him to find. The walk back to the river took 45 minutes. Felt like hours. The officers were unusually alert, hands never straying far from their weapons, eyes scanning the tree line constantly. When they finally reached the riverbank, Jordan felt both relief and frustration. Relief to be out of the deep jungle. Frustration because they had been so close to something, and now they were leaving. They boarded the waiting boat, and the captain immediately started the engine, steering them back toward civilization. The boat cut through the murky waters, and Jordan pulled out his phone to look at the photo of the coordinates. He opened an online map and input the numbers. The map showed a location in Vope's department, near the Inirida River, a remote forested region of Colombia. He was about to search for more information about the area when the boat suddenly lurched to one side, throwing him off balance. Officer Mendoza stumbled into him, and in the confusion, Jordan's phone slipped from his grasp and plunged into the river with a quiet splash. "No!" Jordan shouted, watching in horror as his phone disappeared beneath the surface. All my contacts, my only way to communicate with home, the photos of Daphne, everything. Without thinking, he stripped off his shirt and shoes and dove into the water. The current was not strong here, and the river was relatively calm, allowing him to dive down toward the riverbed. The murky water stung his eyes, but he could just make out the faint glow of his phone screen below. His lungs burning, Jordan reached out, grasped the device, and kicked hard toward the surface. He broke through with a gasp, swimming back to the boat where the officers helped pull him aboard. Water dripped from his phone as he climbed back in, his mind racing with questions about the coordinates and the officers' strange behavior. He sat dripping wet on the boat's bench seat, staring at his waterlogged phone. The screen was still illuminated, but he knew electronic devices and water did not mix well. Acting quickly, he turned it off and removed the battery, shaking it to drain as much water as possible. Maldition, he muttered under his breath, a Spanish curse he had picked up during his time in Colombia. Without his phone, he felt even more isolated than before. How would Julia and Daphne contact him if they were trying to reach out? What if they were somewhere trying to call him right now? What if the coordinates led to them, and now he could not access them? "Do not worry, Senor Hart," Officer Ruiz said, noticing his distress. "If they need to reach you, they will call the police, and we will notify you immediately. You have our word." Jordan nodded, but the reassurance felt hollow. He knew that without access to his phone, he could not check the coordinates again without asking the officers. Officers he was beginning to trust less and less with every passing moment. The boat journey back to civilization passed in tense silence. When they reached the dock, they transferred to a waiting jeep and drove to the police station in Mitu. Upon arrival, Officer Mendoza directed Jordan to a waiting room. "Please wait here," he said, "while we discuss our next steps." Before my phone fell, Jordan said, "I saw that the coordinates pointed somewhere in Vope's department, close to the Inirida River." "That is correct, is it not?" Officer Mendoza nodded. "That is correct. But we need to formulate a proper search plan. This is police work, Senor Hart. You cannot join the discussion. Please wait here." Jordan wanted to protest, to demand answers, to shout at someone. But he decided it was better to appear compliant. If the officers thought he was cooperating, they might let their guard down. "I understand," he said, and he sat down in the waiting room. Once alone, Jordan sat at a small table and took a yellow notepad and pen from the desk. He quickly wrote down what he could remember of the coordinates: 2.3 degrees north and 69.8 degrees west, followed by the letter J. He checked his memory against the photo he had taken, but his phone was dead, so he had to rely on his recollection. He folded the paper and tucked it into his pocket. As he sat waiting, his mind wandered back to how this nightmare had begun. The three of them, Jordan, Julia, and Daphne, had been enjoying their family vacation in Colombia. They had spent a week exploring Bogotá and Cartagena before heading to the Amazon region for what was supposed to be the highlight of their trip. Daphne had been so excited she could barely sleep the night before the tour. The day everything changed, Jordan had woken up with severe food poisoning from something he had eaten the night before. They only had 3 days left in Colombia, and Daphne had been looking forward to the jungle tour for months. "You should still go," he had told Julia and Daphne that morning, bent over with stomach cramps. "The hotel said it is perfectly safe. Take lots of pictures for me. I want to see everything." Julia had been hesitant, her brow furrowed with worry. "Are you sure? We can wait until tomorrow when you are feeling better. It is not a big deal. We can reschedule." No, go ahead," Jordan had insisted, waving them toward the door. "It is just a few hours, right? I will be fine by the time you get back. You can tell me all about it over dinner. Go, have fun, be safe." That was the last time he had seen them. The canoe tour, booked through their hotel's excursion desk, was supposed to be a common tourist activity. Safe, supervised, brief, but Julia, Daphne, and their guide had never returned. When the hours passed and they did not come back, Jordan had called the hotel front desk. They had called the tour company. The tour company had called the guide's phone. No answer. By nightfall, a search had been organized. By morning, Jordan was already making arrangements to fly to the search area himself. Now, 9 weeks later, he was sitting in a police station waiting room, clutching a piece of paper with partial coordinates, wondering if his family was alive or dead. Jordan was jolted from his thoughts when an officer carrying a laptop approached him. "Senor Hart," the officer said, "we have some new information for you. Please follow me." Jordan followed the officer to a small room with a computer. The officer, who introduced himself as Detective Vargas, closed the door behind them and sat down at the desk. He was a slim man in his 40s with tired eyes and an air of quiet competence. Once they were alone, Vargas spoke in a low, measured voice. "We have officially confirmed some details about the guide who took your wife and daughter on the river tour," Detective Vargas began. "His name is Ricky Euro, and he was not an official guide employed by your hotel." Jordan's heart sank. What? He had been told the guide was vetted, that the hotel only worked with licensed professionals. That was a lie. He was not registered with any tour company, Vargas continued. According to people in his village, he works various freelance jobs. Sometimes fishing, sometimes odd jobs for tourists. Sometimes we suspect petty theft. We have also analyzed the river conditions from the day they disappeared. The weather reports show no storms in the area they would have traveled, and the current levels were normal. There was no flooding, no unexpected weather event. "But what about the boat?" Jordan asked. "You found it damaged, right? That suggests something happened. A collision with rocks. Capsizing. Something." "Yes, we found the boat," Vargas said, showing Jordan photos on his computer screen. "But the damage does not appear to be from natural causes. See these breaks in the wood? The pattern and the splinters suggest human interference, not damage from rocks or water. Someone broke that boat deliberately. Someone did not want them to be able to leave." Jordan leaned back in his chair, trying to process this information. His mind was spinning. "What are you saying? That they were kidnapped by this Ricky Euro? That he took them somewhere against their will?" Detective Vargas stood up and walked to the door, checking the hallway before closing it again. He returned to his seat and leaned in, lowering his voice even further. "I do not trust everyone in this station, Senor Hart, so I need to be careful about what I say." He glanced at the door again. "My team heard rumors in Giro's village. Someone saw a group of people find Giro's body and take it away. When questioned further, the witnesses became silent. Nobody would say who these people were or where they took him." Jordan felt a chill run down his spine. "His body? He is dead? That too. We cannot officially confirm it, but the locals believe it," the detective said with a grim nod. "This is not public information yet, and technically I should not be telling you, but you deserve to know. I have reason to believe someone at this station already knows about it and is deliberately keeping quiet. Those villages are tight-knit, and several of our officers patrol those areas regularly. They must have heard something. They must have seen something, but they are not talking. Do you have suspects?" Jordan asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I have my suspicions, but no evidence," Detective Vargas replied. "Cannot tell you more than that. Not yet. Not until I am sure." Jordan ran his hands through his still damp hair. "If these people killed Euro, what about my wife and daughter? Are they in danger too? Are they even still alive?" "We have not heard anything about tourists being murdered," the detective said. "Locals often hesitate to harm foreign tourists, especially Americans, because it draws too much unwanted attention. International pressure, media coverage, diplomatic involvement. It is bad for business, if you understand what I mean. But I cannot make any guarantees. This is a dangerous part of the world, and the people who operate here do not follow the same rules you are used to. So what is our next step?" Jordan asked, desperation creeping into his voice. "I found coordinates carved into a tree, but my phone is ruined. The officers I was with, Mendoza and Ruiz, they acted strange when they saw it. They lied about the markings being old. I could see it in their faces. They knew something. Detective Vargas's eyebrows rose. Mendoza and Ruiz were with you today? Their behavior confirms my suspicions. They have been on my radar for months. He paused, then added, I need you to tell me exactly what you saw. Every detail, no matter how small. Jordan pulled out the note from his pocket. I wrote down what I could remember of the coordinates. When I searched them before my phone died, they pointed to somewhere in Vope's department. Near the Inirida River. The detective took the paper and typed the partial coordinates into his computer. After a moment, he frowned. This entire area is vast, remote jungle, he said, pointing to a large green section on the map. Parts of it are known for illegal trafficking and drug routes. If these coordinates are significant, it would explain why those officers were acting suspiciously. They may be involved in something much bigger than a missing tourist family. Jordan studied the detective's face, trying to determine if he could trust this man. He had been lied to so many times over the past 9 weeks. By hotel staff, by tour operators, by police officers, by strangers who claimed to want to help but only wanted money. Detective Vargas, can I trust you? I cannot vouch for myself, Senor Hart, the detective replied honestly. If I did, you probably would not believe me. He turned his computer screen toward Jordan. But I can show you my record. These are the corruption cases I have handled in the past 5 years. 17 officers from this region alone, all serving time now. Some of them were my colleagues. Some of them were my friends. None of them are free. He met Jordan's gaze steadily. You will have to decide for yourself if you want to trust me or not. I cannot make that choice for you. Jordan studied the case files on Detective Vargas's screen, noting the meticulous documentation of corruption investigations. The detective had clearly done his homework. Something in his straightforward manner and willingness to show his credentials resonated with Jordan. If he could not trust this man, he could not trust anyone in this country. I trust you, Jordan said finally. I have no other choice. Detective Vargas nodded, satisfaction flickering across his face. Good. Now listen carefully. We cannot simply go to these coordinates without a proper plan. The area is dangerous not just because of the jungle, but because of who controls it. If we encounter armed traffickers, it could end badly for all of us. These are not petty criminals. They are organized. They have weapons, communication networks, and lookouts. They will see us coming long before we see them. So what do? My family could be there right now. Julia and Daphne could be waiting for someone to find them. I will send some of my trusted men to join the search expedition that Mendoza and Ruiz are planning, Vargas said. They will keep an eye on things and protect you if necessary. They will blend in with the other officers, but they report directly to me. You will not know who they are, but they will know you. You are not coming yourself? Jordan asked, disappointed. He had hoped the detective would lead the mission personally. The detective shook his head. My presence would raise too many alarms. Everyone in this station knows my reputation. I have investigated half the officers here. If I suddenly join a search mission led by men I have looked into before, they will know something is wrong. They will be on guard. They may even warn the cartel. He placed a hand on Jordan's shoulder. But I promise you can trust my men. They have worked with me for years. They have proven themselves in situations just like this. Jordan nodded reluctantly. I understand. Return to the waiting room, Vargas instructed. Act normal. Pretend you know nothing about this conversation. Do not mention my name. Do not look at anyone differently. Just sit there and wait. When Mendoza and Ruiz come to get you, go with them. Do whatever they say. Do not argue. Do not ask too many questions. And whatever you do not let them know you have been talking to me. Jordan did as instructed, his mind whirling with new information. The scope of corruption here was staggering. How many officers were involved? Was it limited to the station, or did it extend further up the chain of command? He had been sitting in the waiting room for less than 20 minutes when Officers Mendoza and Ruiz approached him. Senor Hart, Officer Mendoza said, we have developed a plan for continuing the search. We will visit a village close to the coordinates you found. We will establish a base camp there and conduct searches in the surrounding area for 1 week, sending out multiple teams each day. You may accompany us, but you must follow our lead. We cannot risk your safety. We have vouched for your presence here. And if anything happens to you, it is our responsibility." Of course, Jordan agreed, playing along as he and Detective Vargas had discussed. "I appreciate all your help. Thank you for not giving up on my family." After gathering supplies and making final preparations, they departed for the village. Jordan learned they would be traveling in 2 police jeeps with a total of 5 police personnel, all selected by Mendoza and Ruiz. Detective Vargas had whispered to him before leaving that a backup team of his trusted officers would arrive later without the others knowing. Jordan did not know who these backup officers were, but he hoped they would be there when he needed them. The journey to the village, which the locals called Puerto Esperanza, took nearly 3 hours over rough, barely passable roads. The dense jungle occasionally gave way to small clearings, but mostly they traveled through tunnels of green, the road nothing more than tire tracks through the wilderness. By the time they arrived, Jordan felt nauseated from the constant bouncing and swaying of the vehicle. His head throbbed, his stomach churned. Every bump sent a jolt of pain through his spine. Officer Ruiz noticed his discomfort and offered him a small white pill. "For the nausea," he explained. "Many tourists get carsick on these roads. It will help settle your stomach." Jordan took the pill but did not swallow it. He palmed it instead, slipping it into his pocket when the officer was not looking. His trust in these officers had evaporated completely. He was not going to take any medication they gave him, no matter how innocent it seemed. Puerto Esperanza was little more than a collection of wooden structures nestled along the riverbank. Children played in the dirt streets, kicking a worn soccer ball back and forth. A few older men lounged in the shade, watching the police vehicles with expressions of bored disinterest. No one waved. No one greeted them. "The locals here are cautious with strangers," Officer Mendoza explained as they unloaded their equipment. "Do not take it personally. They have learned to be wary of outsiders. Too many people have come here promising help and delivering only trouble." Jordan was led to his accommodation, a small room in a local family's home. The space was spare but clean, with a narrow bed, a small table, and a wooden chair. The family that owned the house barely acknowledged him, their faces expressionless as Officer Ruiz explained the arrangements in rapid Spanish. Jordan caught a few words, but not enough to understand the full conversation. "It is getting dark," Officer Mendoza said. "We will begin our search early tomorrow morning. Get some rest, Senor Hart. You will need your strength." Left alone, Jordan set the pill on the table, still unwilling to take any medication from the officers. His nausea gradually subsided as he sat quietly, trying to calm his racing thoughts. The room grew darker as night fell, the only light coming from a small oil lamp on the table. No electricity here, Jordan realized. He stretched out on the bed, not expecting to sleep, his mind too full of worry and suspicion. Every creak of the wooden house made him tense. Every distant voice made him wonder if it was Julia or Daphne. Were they close? Were they still alive? The questions tormented him as he lay in the unfamiliar darkness. He must have drifted off despite his anxiety, because the next thing he knew, he was startled awake by the slight squeak of his door opening. In the dim light, he saw a shadowy figure slip into his room. Before he could react, the intruder lunged at him, pressing a pillow over his face. Jordan thrashed wildly, trying to throw off his attacker, but the man was powerful, his grip like iron. Jordan clawed at the man's arms, fighting desperately for air. But then he felt another set of hands grabbing his legs and arms, pinning him down. Two attackers working together. He continued to struggle, his lungs burning, spots dancing in his vision. His strength began to wane, his movements becoming weaker and more uncoordinated. The last thing Jordan heard before losing consciousness was one of the men whispering in Spanish. "Asegurate que no despierte hasta que lleguemos al campamento." Make sure he does not wake up until we reach the camp. Then darkness claimed him. Consciousness returned to Jordan in waves, his mind rising from darkness into a hazy twilight of awareness. His head throbbed, and his mouth felt dry as sandpaper. He tried to move but found his limbs heavy and uncooperative. As his vision cleared, he realized he was in a dimly lit space, the only illumination filtering down from above through what appeared to be metal bars. Prison cell. He was lying on a dirt floor, damp and cold against his skin. Jordan forced himself to sit up, ignoring the wave of dizziness that washed over him. Looking up, he could see people walking on a level above him, their shadows crossing the bars that separated his underground prison from the world above. "Hello," he called out, his voice weak and raspy. "Is anyone there? I need help." In response, something small and hard, a stone, came flying through the bars, landing painfully on his shoulder. "Hey!" Jordan shouted again. Another stone followed, this one narrowly missing his head. "It is no use," a voice spoke from the darkness behind him. "They will just keep throwing stones if you make noise. Save your breath. You will need it." Jordan whirled around, heart pounding. He had not realized he was not alone. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he made out the silhouette of a man sitting against the far wall of the cell. "Who are you?" Jordan asked, his voice lowered to a whisper. The man shifted, moving into a patch of light. He appeared to be in his 30s, with the weathered complexion of someone who spent much time outdoors. His clothes were torn and dirty, his face bruised, a gash on his forehead still oozing. "My name does not matter here," the man replied in accented English. "We are both in the same situation. Prisoners in their drug lab." "Drug lab?" Jordan repeated. "What drug lab? Where are we?" The man laughed bitterly, the sound hollow and mirthless. "You do not know? This is a cocaine processing facility, hidden deep in the jungle where authorities cannot find it or will not look." His emphasis on the last three words was unmistakable. "They bring in the coca paste, cook it, package it, and ship it out. And anyone who stumbles upon their operation either gets recruited, sold, or killed." "But there were police with me," Jordan said, confusion clouding his thoughts. "We came to a village. They were supposed to help me search for my family." "Police?" The man laughed again, the same hollow sound. "Those were not real police. Or maybe they were. It does not matter. Many police here work for the cartels. They are paid well to look the other way, or sometimes to deliver people like you. You are a package, my friend. A delivery. And I am guessing you have just been delivered." Jordan's blood ran cold as the realization sank in. The corrupt officers had never intended to help him find his family. They had delivered him straight into the hands of their criminal associates. Mendoza and Ruiz were not his protectors. They were his captors. "Wait," Jordan said, studying the man more closely. "Are you Ricky Euro, the missing guide?" The man's eyebrows rose in surprise. "How do you know my name?" "I am Jordan Hart. My wife Julia and daughter Daphne were with you on a river tour 9 weeks ago. All of you disappeared. The police have been searching for you. The hotel has been looking for answers. What happened out there?" Recognition dawned in Giro's eyes. "You are Julia's husband, the American." "Yes, I remember. She talked about you. She was worried about you being sick. She kept saying, 'I hope Jordan is okay. I hope he is drinking water.'" Jordan moved closer, his heart racing. "Do you know where they are? Are they alive? Please, I need to know. I have been searching for 9 weeks. Cannot lose them." Giro nodded slowly, his expression grim. "I have heard their voices here some days. They walk above us near the prison bars. The cartel uses them for work. Your wife, she is smart. She does what they tell her. Your daughter, she is young. They keep her separate, I think. But it has been 3 days since I last heard them. These people are always moving prisoners around. I do not know where they might be now." Relief and fear battled within Jordan. His family was or had been alive, but they were prisoners of a drug cartel. They were being held in this compound or one like it, forced to work, forced to obey. "What happened that day on the river?" Jordan asked. "How did you all end up here?" Before Giro could answer, the sound of a heavy door opening came from above. Both men looked up to see the metal grate being moved aside. A rope ladder was lowered into the cell. "Giro, up." A man's voice commanded in Spanish. "Your turn. Do not keep us waiting." Giro stood, looking resigned. He had been through this before, clearly. Jordan tried to approach the ladder too, desperate to get out and search for his family. But one of the men above aimed a kick at his face, catching him in the chest instead and sending him sprawling back into the darkness. "Wait for your turn," the man snarled in English. "We will come for you soon enough. Do not make us come get you. You will not like it if we have to come get you." Giro climbed the ladder and disappeared through the opening. Jordan could hear voices above him, and though he could not catch every word, what he did hear made his blood freeze. "This is your last day, Euro," someone said in Spanish. "The buyer is ready for you. Do not worry. We will make sure they chop you up real neat. Nice and clean. The client likes his merchandise fresh."
Organ trafficking.
The realization hit Jordan like a physical blow. These people were not just drug manufacturers. They were selling human organs. They were harvesting livers, kidneys, hearts from living prisoners and shipping them to buyers who paid top dollar for healthy specimens. And Euro was about to become one of those specimens. Before Jordan could process this horrifying revelation, the grate opened again. Another man peered down, this one holding a pistol. "You too, American. Come with us. Lots of buyers, lots of money." He brandished the gun. "Try anything funny, and I shoot you right here. No one will hear. No one will care. You will just be another missing tourist." Jordan climbed the ladder with shaking hands, emerging into a large warehouse-like structure. The space was filled with barrels, workbenches covered with various chemicals, and people working in masks and gloves. A drug processing facility, just as Euro had said. The air was thick with the acrid smell of gasoline and ammonia, the chemicals used to extract cocaine from coca paste. Ricky Euro stood nearby, flanked by armed guards. Several other frightened-looking people, all appearing malnourished and disheveled, were being herded toward the door. Through a dirty window, Jordan saw a truck approaching. Armed men jumped out as it stopped, and Jordan and the other prisoners were forced toward the vehicle. As he climbed into the back of the truck, the sound of another engine caught his attention. Turning, he saw a second truck pulling into the compound. And there, bound and being led from the second truck, were Julia and Daphne. "Julia! Daphne!" Jordan screamed, his heart nearly bursting at the sight of them. His wife looked thin, her face hollow, her hair matted and dirty. But she was alive. Daphne was smaller, paler, her eyes wide with fear, but she was alive. They turned at the sound of his voice, their eyes widening in recognition and hope. For one brief, precious moment, their gazes locked across the compound. Then a guard's gun but connected with Jordan's face, sending him sprawling onto the truck bed. Warm blood trickled from his nose as the truck engine roared to life. The image of Julia and Daphne burned in his mind. They were alive. Thin, dirty, frightened, but alive. After 9 weeks of torment, of not knowing, he had finally found them, only to be separated again. The cruel irony threatened to overwhelm him. But seeing them had ignited something in Jordan, a fierce determination that surpassed fear. He could not lose them again. He would not. Blood dripped from Jordan's nose onto his shirt as the truck rumbled away from the compound, carrying him, Ricky Euro, and 3 other prisoners through the dense jungle. 2 armed guards sat at the back of the truck, weapons trained on their captives. The young guard with the pistol looked nervous, his eyes darting around, his finger twitching on the trigger. The older guard held a rifle across his lap, his expression bored and indifferent. Jordan glanced at the nearest guard, assessing him. The young man was perhaps in his early 20s, with a nervous energy that suggested inexperience. The pistol in his hand wavered slightly with the truck's movement. Jordan knew he had to act. Any hope that Detective Vargas's men might rescue him had evaporated. His only chance, and his family's only chance, rested in his own hands. As the truck navigated a particularly rough stretch of road, Jordan launched himself forward. He grabbed the young guard's wrist and twisted it upward. The gun discharged with a deafening crack, the bullet tearing through the truck's canvas roof. The other prisoners scattered, pressing themselves against the sides of the truck as Jordan grappled with the guard. With a desperate strength he did not know he possessed, Jordan brought his knee up hard into the man's stomach, then wrenched the gun from his grasp. The second guard raised his weapon, but Jordan was faster, swinging the pistol toward him. "Drop it," he shouted. "Drop it now." In the moment of hesitation that followed, Ricky Euro and 2 other prisoners surged forward, tackling the second guard. The truck swerved wildly as the driver realized what was happening behind him. Shots rang out, the driver firing blindly through the rear window of the cab. One of the prisoners cried out and fell, blood blossoming on his chest. "Jump!" Jordan yelled, pushing Euro toward the back of the still-moving truck. "Everyone jump now." The remaining prisoners did not need to be told twice. They leapt from the vehicle, rolling as they hit the dirt road. Jordan followed, tucking his shoulder and tumbling down a slight embankment before coming to rest among ferns and fallen leaves. Pain shot through his shoulder, but Jordan ignored it, scrambling to his feet. The truck had skidded to a stop about 50 yards ahead. The driver and his assistant were climbing out, guns drawn. Jordan darted into the dense undergrowth, using the trees for cover as he circled back toward the compound. He had to reach Julia and Daphne before they were moved again. A shout from behind told him he had been spotted. A bullet splintered bark from a tree inches from his head. Jordan ducked lower and ran harder, zigzagging through the vegetation. When he was certain he had put enough distance between himself and his pursuers, he paused, gasping for breath. He checked the gun he had taken. 6 bullets left in the magazine. Not much, but better than nothing. Orienting himself using the sun's position, Jordan began moving in what he hoped was the direction of the drug compound. Time was critical. If that second truck had been preparing to move Julia and Daphne elsewhere, he might already be too late. He pushed through the jungle, ignoring the branches that whipped his face, the thorns that tore at his clothes, the insects that swarmed around his head. After 15 minutes of careful navigation, Jordan spotted a clearing ahead. Crouching behind a massive fallen tree, he surveyed the scene. The drug compound was larger than he had initially realized. A collection of buildings surrounded by a chain-link fence. Armed men patrolled the perimeter at regular intervals. Trucks came and went through a guarded gate. The whole operation was far more sophisticated than he had imagined. Jordan's heart sank as he saw that the truck which had been carrying Julia and Daphne was no longer where it had been parked. Had they already been moved? Then he spotted them. They were being transferred from one building to a different truck, this one more modern and well-maintained than the others. A man in expensive-looking clothes, flanked by 2 bodyguards, supervised the transfer. He appeared to be giving orders, his gestures authoritative and impatient. The boss, Jordan guessed, the man in charge of this entire operation. Panic coursed through him. Once that truck left with his family, he might never find them again. But a commotion at the main gate caught his attention. Men were shouting, pointing toward the jungle, toward the direction from which Jordan had come. The driver of his escape truck must have returned and raised the alarm. The cartel knew an intruder was in the area. They would be on high alert now. Jordan needed to act now, while attention was diverted elsewhere. Staying low, he circled to approach the compound from a different angle, one with less visible security. As he neared the fence, he noticed a tent set up near one of the smaller buildings. Something familiar caught his eye. His backpack, tossed carelessly on a table inside the tent. They had taken it from him when they captured him, and now it was sitting there, completely unguarded. Glancing around to ensure no one was watching, Jordan slipped under a loose section of fence and darted to the tent. Inside, he found not only his backpack but also his phone and the battery he had removed after it fell into the river. Someone had retrieved his belongings from the station, probably Mendoza or Ruiz, planning to dispose of the evidence later. Jordan grabbed his belongings, checking quickly inside the backpack. The sharpened wood piece from the forest was still there, the one he had found near the carved coordinates. He pocketed it, then retrieved his phone and battery. With trembling hands, he reassembled the phone and pressed the power button, hardly daring to hope. To his astonishment, the screen flickered to life, though with visible water damage clouding parts of the display. The touch sensors were erratic, sometimes responding several inches away from where he pressed. But it worked, sort of. He ducked behind the building as voices approached. Through a gap in the wall panels, he watched as Julia and Daphne were loaded into the waiting truck. They looked thin and exhausted, their clothes dirty and torn. Daphne's face was streaked with tears, while Julia's expression was vacant, almost catatonic. The sight tore at Jordan's heart. What had they endured these past 9 weeks? The truck's engine started. It was now or never. Jordan dialed the emergency number, praying the call would connect. After several agonizing seconds, an operator answered. "Emergency services. What is your emergency?" "My name is Jordan Hart," he whispered urgently. "I am an American citizen. I have been kidnapped by a drug cartel in the Vopes region. They also have my wife and daughter. Please connect me with Detective Vargas in Mitu. I believe there are corrupt police involved in this operation." "Stay on the line, senor," the operator instructed. "We will try to trace your location." My phone is damaged, Jordan explained. Could die at any moment. I will keep the line open as long as I can. As he spoke, Jordan began moving through the compound, staying in the shadows, following the truck that now carried his family. It moved slowly through the jungle road, likely due to the rough terrain, allowing him to keep pace at a distance. He described his surroundings to the operator, giving as many details as he could. Buildings, fences, guard positions, vehicle descriptions. Detective Vargas's team reports they are in a nearby village, the operator relayed. They will reach your location soon. Stay hidden. Do not engage. The signal began to break up as Jordan moved deeper into the jungle, following the truck. Static crackled through the sporadic words of the operator until finally the call died completely. Jordan was on his own again, but closer to his family than he had been in 9 weeks. The jungle canopy thinned as Jordan approached a new structure, one he had glimpsed earlier from a distance. It was a concrete building, more substantial than those at the drug processing facility, with a corrugated metal roof and barred windows. A high fence surrounded the property, with armed guards stationed at intervals along its perimeter. This place was different. This was not a drug lab. This was a detention center, a holding facility for the cartel's most valuable assets. The truck carrying Julia and Daphne had pulled up to a loading dock at the rear of the building. Jordan crouched behind a dense clump of vegetation, observing as his wife and daughter were escorted inside, still bound at the wrists. Through an open door, he could see they were being taken to a room down a corridor. The guards stationed themselves outside the door, rifles held across their chests. This place was less busy than the drug compound, with fewer personnel visible. That might work to his advantage. Fewer people to overcome if he attempted a rescue. But he was still significantly outnumbered, with only a pistol containing 6 bullets against what appeared to be at least 8 armed men. As Jordan considered his options, a sleek black SUV approached the compound. It drove through the gates without being stopped, suggesting the occupants were expected or known to the guards. The SUV parked near the entrance, and a well-dressed man emerged from the passenger side. He carried a leather briefcase and was accompanied by 2 bodyguards in dark suits, an unusual sight in the jungle heat. Jordan's blood ran cold as he realized what he was witnessing. A transaction. Someone had come to purchase his wife and daughter. The man in the expensive suit was a buyer, probably a broker for the organ trafficking network Euro had mentioned. Inside the building, the visitors were greeted by the man Jordan had identified as the boss at the drug facility. The 2 men shook hands and disappeared inside, followed by their respective security details. Jordan could not wait any longer. Detective Vargas's men might be on their way, but they could arrive too late. He needed to act now. Gripping the pistol, he began to circle the compound, looking for the weakest point in their security. The back of the property, where the jungle grew closest to the fence, seemed to have only 1 guard patrolling. Jordan waited until the guard's back was turned, then sprinted across the open space to the fence. He slipped through a gap where the chain link had been cut and poorly repaired, tearing his shirt in the process but making it through undetected. Once inside the perimeter, he pressed himself against the building's wall, inching toward the door where Julia and Daphne had been taken. His heart hammered so loudly in his chest, he feared the guards might hear it. As he neared the door, he could hear voices from inside. The boss and the buyer discussing terms. Quality merchandise, the buyer was saying in English, especially the girl. Young, healthy, perfect for our clients. The organs from a child are in high demand. They heal faster. They are less likely to be rejected. The woman is worth just as much, the boss replied. Organ harvesting pays premium for healthy adult specimens as well. Both of them are in good condition, considering what they have been through. We have kept them alive specifically for this purpose. Jordan's stomach lurched. They were talking about his family like they were livestock, calculating their value based on the parts of their bodies that could be sold. A wave of rage overwhelmed his fear. Without fully considering the consequences, Jordan stepped into the open doorway, gun raised. "Let them go," he demanded, his voice steady despite the terror coursing through him. "Let my family go right now, or I swear I will kill every last one of you." The room fell silent. The boss and the buyer turned to stare at him, along with their bodyguards who immediately reached for their weapons. "Do not move," Jordan shouted, aiming the gun at the boss. "Tell your men to back off or I shoot." I am not bluffing. I have nothing left to lose. The boss raised his hands slowly, a calculating look in his eyes. You are making a mistake, he said calmly. You think you can walk out of here with them? There are 20 men outside. You will never make it to the gate. Put the gun down and we can talk. We can make a deal. The buyer, visibly annoyed, turned to the boss. This is not my problem, he said. I am leaving. Our deal is off until you handle your security issues. I do not do business with people who cannot control their own compound. He gestured to his bodyguards and began moving toward the door. No one leaves, Jordan insisted, swinging the gun toward the buyer. Not until my family is safe. Not until they are in that truck and driving away from this place. Everyone stays right where they are. One of the bodyguards lunged at Jordan while his attention was divided. The gun went off as they struggled, the bullet embedding itself in the ceiling. Strong hands gripped Jordan's arms, wrenching the weapon away. As Jordan fought to regain control, the door behind him burst open. More men poured in, and for a moment Jordan thought it was the end. Until he heard a familiar voice shout in Spanish. Police! Nobody move! This is a raid. Get on the ground now. Jordan turned to see Detective Vargas entering with a team of armed officers, their weapons trained on the traffickers. Vargas had made it. His trusted men had arrived. Chaos erupted as the police stormed into the room. The buyer's bodyguards drew their weapons, and gunfire exploded in the confined space. Jordan, still restrained by one of the boss's men, used the distraction to break free, slamming his elbow into his captor's ribs. As the man doubled over in pain, Jordan spotted another guard moving to flank the police. Without thinking, Jordan tackled him from behind, sending them both crashing into a stack of crates. The guard recovered quickly, pinning Jordan to the ground with a forearm across his throat. As black spots danced in Jordan's vision, he remembered the sharpened wood in his pocket, the makeshift tool that had carved those life-saving coordinates into the tree. With his remaining strength, Jordan worked his hand into his pocket and wrapped his fingers around the wooden shard. In one desperate movement, he drove it into the guard's thigh. The man howled in pain, his grip loosening just enough for Jordan to twist free. He scrambled away, grabbing the guard's dropped pistol as he did. Across the room, the police were steadily gaining control of the situation. Several of the traffickers lay on the ground, hands behind their heads, while others had retreated further into the building, exchanging gunfire with the advancing officers. But Jordan had only one thought: finding Julia and Daphne. He slipped out of the main room and down the corridor where he had seen them taken earlier. Two guards stood outside a door at the end of the hall, looking uncertain whether to join the fight or maintain their post. They made their decision when they saw Jordan approaching with a gun. Both raised their weapons, but Jordan was faster, firing twice. One guard fell immediately. The other staggered backward but remained standing, taking aim at Jordan. Before the guard could fire, a shot rang out from behind Jordan. The guard collapsed, revealing Ricky Euro standing in the corridor, a police handgun in his hands. Euro had escaped during the chaos and had come back to help. Your family is in there? Euro asked, nodding toward the door. Jordan nodded, his throat too tight with emotion to speak. Then let us get them out, Euro said simply. Together they approached the door. It was locked, but a well-placed kick from Euro sent it crashing inward. Inside, Julia and Daphne sat bound to chairs, their eyes wide with fear at the sudden intrusion. When they recognized Jordan, Daphne let out a sob of relief, while Julia's expression remained strangely blank, as if she could not quite process what she was seeing. Dad, Daphne cried as Jordan rushed to untie her. You found us. You really found us. I knew you would come. I told Mom you would come. I promised I would never stop looking, Jordan said, his voice breaking as he worked on the ropes binding his daughter's wrists. I am so sorry it took so long. I am so sorry I was not there to protect you. Once Daphne was free, she threw her arms around Jordan's neck, clinging to him as if afraid he might disappear. Over her shoulder, Jordan met Julia's eyes as Euro untied her bonds. Julia, he whispered, reaching out to touch her face. It is me. It is really me. I am here. I am not leaving without you. Julia blinked slowly, tears welling in her eyes. Jordan, she murmured, her voice hoarse from disuse or screaming. Jordan could not tell which, and the thought made his heart constrict painfully. You came. I did not think you would find us. I tried to leave signs. The tree, the coordinates. I did not know if anyone would see them. I saw them, Jordan said. I found them. You saved us, Julia. You saved all of us. Before they could say more, the sound of approaching vehicles filled the air. Through the window, Jordan could see police trucks surrounding the compound, officers in tactical gear pouring out. Backup has arrived, Eero announced. We should go. Now, as they made their way back through the corridor, they passed the main room where the initial confrontation had taken place. The boss and several of his men were being handcuffed and led outside. The buyer had been caught as well, his expensive suit now dusty and torn, his face a mask of fury as he was escorted to a waiting police vehicle. Outside, the compound was swarming with officers. Jordan spotted a familiar face among them, one of Detective Vargas's trusted men, who approached with a satellite phone. Senor Hart, the officer said, offering the phone. Detective Vargas wishes to speak with you. Jordan took the phone, keeping one arm firmly around Daphne, who refused to leave his side. Jordan, are you all right? Detective Vargas's voice crackled through the speaker. We have the compound surrounded. The cartel members are surrendering. What is your status? We are alive, Jordan replied, his voice thick with emotion. All of us, my wife, my daughter, and me. Your men arrived just in time. Another minute and I think we would have been dead. I am glad to hear it, the detective said. My team has secured the drug processing facility as well. 5 corrupt officers have been arrested and are being brought to my station as we speak. Mendoza and Ruiz are among them. The rest of the cartel members are either in custody or being pursued. This is the end of this operation, Jordan. You and your family are safe now. Thank you, Jordan said simply, knowing the words were inadequate for what the detective had done. I owe you everything. I do not know how I will ever repay you. An ambulance is on its way to your location, Vargas continued. I will see you all back at the station. And Jordan, do not thank me. You did this. You never gave up. Your wife left those coordinates. Your family never stopped fighting. I just pointed my men in the right direction. As Jordan handed back the phone, he drew both Julia and Daphne close, savoring the feel of them in his arms again. After 9 weeks of hell, they were finally together. A medic approached to check their conditions, particularly Julia, who seemed the most physically affected by their ordeal. As she was guided toward one of the waiting vehicles, Jordan noticed Ricky Eero speaking with several officers, gesturing animatedly. Is he really helping the police? Jordan asked the officer beside him. Eero, the officer, replied, yes. After he escaped the truck with you, he found one of our patrols and led them back to the compound. He gave us the layout of the facility, the guard rotations, everything. He says he wants to make things right. He knows he made mistakes, but he is trying to fix them now. Jordan nodded, making a mental note to thank the man properly when things calmed down. Whatever Eero's initial motives might have been, he had helped save their lives in the end. Without him, Jordan might never have found the compound again. Without him, the police might not have arrived in time. As the convoy of vehicles prepared to depart, Jordan held Daphne's hand tightly, unwilling to let go even for a second. They climbed into one of the medical transport vehicles with Julia, beginning the long journey back to civilization. The nightmare was not over. The physical and emotional scars would take time to heal, but they were alive and they were together. For now, that was enough. The sterile white walls of the hospital room in Me Too were a stark contrast to the green jungle that had been their prison for so long. Jordan sat in an uncomfortable plastic chair between 2 beds, Julia in one, Daphne in the other, both sleeping peacefully under the influence of mild sedatives administered by the doctors. Their physical conditions, while serious, were not as dire as Jordan had feared. Malnutrition, dehydration, numerous insect bites, a few minor infections, all treatable. The psychological trauma, however, would take much longer to address. A soft knock on the door pulled Jordan from his thoughts. Detective Vargas entered, looking tired but satisfied. How are they? The detective asked quietly, nodding toward the sleeping figures. Stable? Stable, Jordan replied. The doctors want to keep them for observation for a few days. Then we can fly home to the States. He ran a hand through his hair, which was still matted with jungle debris. I cannot thank you enough for what you did. Without your help, I do not think we would be here right now. Vargas waved away the gratitude. I was doing my job, Senor Hart. The job I swore to do when I became a police officer. He pulled up a chair and sat beside Jordan. I thought you might want an update on the situation. We have made significant progress since the raid. Jordan nodded, careful not to disturb Daphne, whose hand was still clutched in his even in sleep. We have dismantled a significant operation, Vargas began. Not just the drug processing facility, but a human trafficking network that extended into 3 countries. The man who came to purchase your family was a broker for a larger organization that specializes in organ harvesting. He glanced at Daphne and chose not to finish the sentence. Jordan swallowed hard. And the corrupt officers? Jordan asked. All 5 are in custody and facing substantial prison sentences. We found evidence linking them to at least a dozen similar cases. Tourists who disappeared in remote areas, locals who were never reported missing. This may be the largest corruption case in the department's history. Mendoza and Ruiz have already started talking, trading information for reduced sentences. They have given us names, locations, dates. We are following every lead. What about Ricky Euro? Jordan asked. I still do not understand his role in all this. Was he working for the cartel? Was he a victim? Both? Vargas sighed. We have spent considerable time questioning him. His story is complicated. He admits he is not a hotel employee, but a petty thief who occasionally posed as a guide to rob tourists. That was his original plan for your family. Take them on a short detour, steal their valuables, and return them to the hotel frightened but unharmed. He has done it before. It is a common scam in this region. Jordan's expression hardened. He put my family in danger. He is the reason they were captured in the first place. Yes, but not intentionally in this case, Vargas explained. According to Euro, he was not familiar with that particular river route. He took a wrong turn and accidentally entered territory controlled by the cartel. They witnessed operations that no outsider should see. The cartel took all 3 of them prisoner. Euro claims he tried to make a deal with the cartel, offering to work for them in exchange for his freedom. They sent him back to the village as a test to see if he would alert the authorities. But by then, you had already reported your family missing, and police were searching the area. The corrupt officers, Jordan said, the pieces falling into place. Exactly. They saw Euro return alone and realized what had happened. They captured him and sent him back to the cartel, convincing them he needed to be eliminated before he could reveal your family's whereabouts. That is how he ended up in that underground cell with you, awaiting organ harvesting. He was a liability, and the cartel decided to cut their losses. Jordan fell silent, processing this information. After a moment, he asked what will happen to him now. He will face charges for attempted robbery and endangerment, but his cooperation and assistance in the rescue will be taken into consideration. Colombian justice is not always swift, but it tries to be fair. I suspect he will serve some time, but not as much as he might have without his testimony. Vargas paused, then added, for what it is worth, I believe he is genuinely sorry. He helped us save lives today, including your families. That counts for something. Their conversation was interrupted by movement from Julia's bed. She was awake, listening to them with clear, alert eyes, the most present she had seemed since the rescue. Julia, Jordan said, moving quickly to her side. How are you feeling? Do you need anything? Water? The doctor? Better. She whispered, her voice still weak. Is it really over? Are we safe now? It is over, Jordan assured her, taking her hand. We are safe now. The cartel has been dismantled. The corrupt officers are in jail. Detective Vargas here made sure of it. We are going home soon. All 3 of us. Detective Vargas stood. I will leave you to talk. The doctor mentioned you might feel ready to give a statement soon, Senora Hart, but there is no rush. Take all the time you need. We will be here when you are ready. After the detective left, Julia squeezed Jordan's hand. I need to tell you what happened, she said. I need you to know what we went through. Cannot keep it inside anymore. You do not have to do this now, Jordan said gently. You are still recovering. The doctor said you need rest. I do this before I lose my courage, Julia insisted. She took a deep breath, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. After they captured us, they separated us at first. Daphne was kept with other women, children mostly. I do not know exactly what happened to her, but I heard her crying sometimes. She would call for me and I could not answer. I could not do anything. It was the worst feeling I have ever experienced. Jordan felt rage building inside him again, but forced himself to remain calm for Julia's sake. He needed to listen. He needed to understand. I was taken to work in the lab, Julia continued. They forced me to handle chemicals, dangerous ones, for making cocaine. If I made mistakes, they threatened to hurt Daphne. They would tell me, your daughter will pay for your errors. So I worked. I worked until my hands blistered and my eyes burned. I did everything they asked. She held up her palms, which bore the reddish marks of chemical burns. Some of the burns were still healing. Some were new. Jordan gently touched her hands, his heart breaking. We were moved between facilities every few days, she continued. Sometimes the main lab, sometimes warehouses in small villages. They did not want us to become too familiar with any one location. During transport, I started noticing one of the guards had a GPS device. He would check it constantly, making sure we were on the right route. I memorized coordinates I saw on the screen. I did not know if they would be useful, but I had to try something. The tree, Jordan said. That was you. You carved those coordinates into the tree. Julia nodded. Whenever we would stop and I would ask to use the bathroom, I would look for a tree I could mark. I would scratch a little bit each time, a few numbers here, a few letters there, hoping someone would notice. I did not know if anyone was even looking for us anymore, but I had to try. I had to leave something behind. I could not let us disappear without a trace. I never stopped looking, Jordan said firmly. Not for a single day. Not for a single hour. I hired guides, I talked to police, I searched the jungle myself. I did not give up, Julia. I could not. Tears filled Julia's eyes. I knew you would not. That is what kept me going. Knowing that you were out there somewhere, looking for us. Knowing that you would never stop. She swallowed hard. 2 weeks ago, I overheard the guards talking. They said we were becoming too much trouble to keep. They knew we were American tourists and worried about attention from the embassy. They were planning to sell me to organ traffickers and Daphne to people I do not even want to think about. Jordan felt physically ill at her words. His stomach churned. His hands shook. But he forced himself to stay calm. That is when I decided to finish the coordinates, Julia continued, her voice stronger now. I knew it was our last chance. I did not know if the tree was anywhere people would search, but I had to try something. I could not let them take Daphne. I would rather have died trying to escape than let them hurt her. A small voice came from the other bed. Mom. Daphne was awake, her young face solemn beyond her years. Did you really save us by writing on a tree? Julia managed a small smile. I tried, sweetheart. I tried to leave a trail. But your father is the one who found it and understood what it meant. He is the one who came for us. He never stopped believing. We all saved each other, Jordan said, moving to sit on the edge of Daphne's bed, still holding Julia's hand across the gap between the beds. That is what families do. We fight for each other. We never give up. And in the end, we find our way back home. For the first time since their rescue, Daphne smiled. A genuine smile that reached her eyes. It was small and tentative, but it was there. A sign that somewhere beneath the trauma, their daughter was still whole. The road to recovery would be long. There would be nightmares, therapy sessions, moments of fear and doubt. But looking at his wife and daughter, both battered but unbroken, Jordan felt a surge of determination. They had survived the unimaginable. They had found each other across impossible odds. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, just as they had faced the darkness of the Amazon. Outside the hospital window, the edge of the vast jungle was visible, green and impenetrable, hiding both beauty and terror within its depths. But its power to frighten them was diminished now. They had seen its worst and emerged on the other side, forever changed but not defeated. As the afternoon sun cast golden light across their hospital room, Jordan made a silent promise to both Julia and Daphne. No matter what came next, they would never be separated again. The coordinates carved into that tree had been more than a location. They had been a message of hope, a testament to human resilience, and ultimately the thread that had led their family back together. In the jungle's darkness, they had found their way home. And that, right there, is why you never give up. No matter how deep the jungle, no matter how long the night, hope is a compass that always points home. If the story moved you, if it made you feel something, then do not just sit there. Subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that miracles do happen. And I will see you in the next one. Stay safe, stay strong, and never stop searching for the ones you love.